Short verse creations. Relax. Listen. Escape.
Chapter 1. The Decision to Escape. The Restlessness. Elliot sat in the dimly lit corner of his apartment, staring at the muted TV screen flickering before him. The sound was off, but the images of a sitcom played on repeat. A collection of canned laughter and frozen smiles. He wasn't watching it, not really. His mind buzzed with questions he couldn't quite articulate, a constant hum of dissatisfaction that had settled in his chest like a parasite. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee and the faint musk of a life lived on autopilot. It was the same routine. Wake, work, sleep, repeat. Over and over again, like a carousel he couldn't get off. The world outside his window was no different. Cars honking, people rushing, everyone moving as if they all knew where they were going. But Elliot didn't. Not anymore. When his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, its harsh vibration cutting through the stillness, he ignored it at first. But it buzzed again, and again. Finally, with a groan, he got up and grabbed it. "Elliot, man, you're coming this weekend, right?" Max's voice boomed through the speaker, casual but commanding. "Coming where?" Elliot replied, already half regretting answering. "The camping trip. Don't tell me you forgot. It's gonna be epic, dude. Just what you need to, stop being so—" Max trailed off, searching for the right word. "So you lately." Elliot sighed. "I don't know, Max. I've got stuff to do." "Stuff like what? Sitting in your apartment watching reruns of shows you don't even like?" Max snorted. "Come on, man. You need this. We all do. Lila's bringing her tarot cards. Dean's bringing his usual skeptical bullshit, and Jared's got some surprises up his sleeve." Max's voice softened. "Look, it's only a weekend. Fresh air, no emails, no spreadsheets. Just nature, good vibes, and maybe a little something extra." Elliot hesitated, the words catching in his throat. But then he looked around his empty apartment, the walls closing in like a cage, and something in him snapped. "Fine," he said. "I'll come." The camping trip. The forest loomed large and alive, a cathedral of nature that seemed to swallow the group whole. Elliot stepped out of the car, his boots crunching on the gravel as he took in the towering trees and the smell of damp earth. It had been years since he'd been this far from the city, and the air felt strangely heavy, like it was pressing against his skin. Max was already unloading the camping gear, his energy infectious. "This is it, guys. This is how we reset." Lila twirled in a patch of sunlight, her long skirt billowing around her. "The energy here is amazing," she said, closing her eyes as if communing with the forest itself. "Can't you feel it?" Dean rolled his eyes. "It's just a bunch of trees, Lila. Let's not get carried away." Jared, the wild card of the group, grinned as he pulled a small cooler from the trunk. "Don't you worry, Dean. By the end of this weekend, you'll be seeing things her way." The mushrooms. As night fell, the group gathered around a crackling campfire. The flames danced and cast long shadows across their faces, the air thick with the smell of smoke and the faint, sweet scent of pine. Jared reached into the cooler and pulled out a small plastic bag filled with gnarled, dried mushrooms. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, holding the bag aloft like a prize. "Tonight, we take a journey." Lila clapped her hands together. "Yes, I've been waiting for this." Dean frowned. "Are you serious? You're really gonna eat that stuff?" "Oh, relax," Jared said, tossing him a wink. "It's not poison, it's enlightenment." Elliot stared at the bag as Jared passed it around. The mushrooms looked unassuming, almost harmless, but there was something about them that made his stomach churn. When the bag reached him, he hesitated. "First time?" Jared asked, smirking. "Yeah," Elliot admitted. "Don't overthink it, man. Just chew and swallow. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid." Elliot took a small handful and examined them. The stems were brittle, the caps slightly wrinkled. He popped them into his mouth, the taste earthy and bitter, like dirt and decay. He chased it with a swig of water, grimacing as he swallowed. "Good man," Jared said, clapping him on the back. "Now sit back and let the magic happen." The trip begins. At first, it was subtle. The fire seemed to burn a little brighter, its flames stretching higher into the dark sky. The shadows it cast began to move, not with the flicker of the fire, but with a life of their own. The forest around them seemed to breathe, the trees swaying gently even though there was no wind. Elliot blinked, trying to focus, but the world refused to stay still. The stars above twisted and spiraled, forming patterns he couldn't quite understand. He looked at his friends, their faces glowing and shifting, their laughter echoing as if it came from miles away. This is weird, he muttered, but no one seemed to hear him. The ground beneath him felt soft and alive, like it was pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He tried to stand, but his legs wobbled, and he fell back onto the grass. That's when he saw them. Tiny figures, no taller than his knee, emerged from the shadows of the trees. Their skin glowed faintly, a soft bioluminescence that made them look otherworldly. They had sharp, delicate features and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through him. They moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic, their movements synchronized like a dance. "Welcome, Elliot," one of them said, its voice high and melodic. "We've been waiting for you." Elliot's mouth went dry. What is this? Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, a faint smile playing on its lips. "You've taken the first step. Now the journey begins." The forest around him dissolved into a swirl of colors, the firelight blending with the stars. His friends' voices faded, replaced by a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the tiny figure reaching out a hand, its luminous eyes filled with something he couldn't quite name. Curiosity? Pity? Or something else entirely? When Elliot opened his eyes, he was no longer in the forest. The world around him was a riot of colors and shapes, constantly shifting and morphing. The ground beneath his feet was soft and spongy, covered in strange, glowing fungi. The air was thick with the scent of earth and something sweet, almost sickly. The tiny figures surrounded him, their glowing forms casting a gentle light. One of them stepped forward, its voice echoing in his mind. "You've crossed into the mushroom world. There's no going back now." Elliot tried to speak, but his voice was lost in the hum of the world around him. Panic set in as he realized he couldn't feel his body, couldn't sense the connection to the life he had left behind. The tiny figures smiled, their expressions unreadable. And then they began to laugh. Chapter 2. The Veil and the Truth. The Mushroom World's Welcome. Elliot stood motionless, his breath shallow as his mind struggled to comprehend the kaleidoscopic world around him. The landscape was alive, pulsating with colors too vibrant to exist, and shapes that morphed before his eyes. Trees with spiraling, glowing trunks stretched into skies that shimmered like liquid glass. The ground beneath his feet was a carpet of bioluminescent fungi, their tiny tendrils curling and uncurling as if sensing his presence. The Mycoids, those tiny elf-like entities, surrounded him in a loose circle, their glowing bodies casting soft, dancing lights across the surreal terrain. They whispered among themselves in a language Elliot couldn't understand, their voices like the chime of distant bells. He felt their gazes on him, curious but not unkind. Where am I?" Elliot stammered, his voice trembling. One of the mycoids stepped forward. Its features were delicate yet alien, its eyes impossibly large, its face a perfect balance of beauty and strangeness. When it spoke, its voice echoed directly in Elliot's mind, bypassing sound entirely. "You are in the place between," it said, its tone calm and soothing. "The mushroom world, a realm that exists beneath the surface of your reality, hidden from most, yet always present." Elliot's head spun. This isn't real. It's the mushrooms. I'm just tripping. This is all in my head." The mycoid tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Is it? Or is what you call reality the true illusion?" Visions of the Veil. The mycoids gestured for Elliot to follow them, their movements fluid and almost hypnotic. Though his legs felt heavy, As if weighed down by the strangeness of this world, Elliot found himself obeying. They led him through a forest of towering, luminous mushrooms, their caps glowing in shades of blue, green, and gold. The air was thick with a sweet, earthy scent, and every sound, every rustle of the strange foliage, every distant hum, seemed to vibrate directly in his chest. As they walked, the mycoid who had spoken earlier raised its hand. "You've lived your entire life under the veil," it said. "It is time you see what lies beneath." Before Elliot could respond, the air around him shimmered, and suddenly he was no longer in the mushroom world. He was somewhere else. The real world. Exposed. Elliot found himself standing in the middle of a bustling city street. Cars honked, pedestrians rushed past him, and the towering skyscrapers seemed to loom higher than ever. At first, he thought he had been returned to reality, but then he noticed the cracks. The world was wrong. The cars moved jerkily, as if their motions were controlled by unseen strings. The people around him were faceless, their heads smooth and featureless like mannequins. Yet they moved with purpose, their bodies animated by some external force. The sky above was a flat, unbroken gray, like the ceiling of a cavern. "What is this?" Elliot whispered, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of the city. "This is the world as it truly is," the mycoid's voice echoed in his mind. "The veil has been lifted, and now you see the machinery of existence." Elliot turned in a slow circle, his heart pounding. He saw his friends, Max, Lila, Dean, and Jared, sitting around the campfire where he had left them. But they were frozen in place, their laughter playing on a loop like a broken record. Max's head tilted back in a silent howl of laughter, his mouth stretched impossibly wide. Lila's hands were caught mid-gesture, her fingers twitching unnaturally. It was as if time itself had fractured, leaving them trapped in a single moment. "No," Elliot said, shaking his head. "This isn't real. It can't be." The mycoid appeared beside him, its glowing form starkly out of place in the gray, lifeless world. "What you see is the truth. The veil creates the illusion of life, of freedom. But it is nothing more than a construct, a facade designed to keep you docile." "Designed by who?" Elliot demanded, his voice rising. The mycoid's expression darkened, its glow dimming slightly. "That is a question you are not yet ready to understand." The test of perception. The scene shifted again, faster this time, and Elliot was back in the mushroom world. He collapsed onto the soft, spongy ground, his body trembling. The mycoids watched him silently, their glowing eyes unreadable. "You must unlearn what you think you know," one of them said, its voice gentle but firm. "Reality is not a fixed thing. It is a story you tell yourself, shaped by perception and belief. To see beyond the veil, you must let go of the old story." Elliot's mind raced. "But why me? Why am I here? Why did you bring me to this place?" "You chose this path," the mycoid replied. "When you consumed the sacred spores, you opened a doorway. Few have the courage to step through, but you did. And now, you must walk it to its end." Fragments of the past. The mycoids gestured again, and Elliot found himself pulled into a series of visions, fragments of his own life, but warped and surreal. He saw himself as a child, sitting at the kitchen table while his parents argued in the background. Except in this vision, his parents' faces were blurred, their voices distorted like a warped tape. He saw himself as a teenager, staring at his reflection in a bathroom mirror. But the reflection wasn't his own. It was someone else, a stranger with empty eyes and a hollow smile. "These are your memories," the mycoid explained. "But memories are malleable. They are not the truth you think they are." Elliot clenched his fists. "Stop it! This isn't helping! I don't understand what you want from me!" The mycoid stepped closer, its glowing form pulsing with light. "We want nothing. We are merely guides. It is you who must decide whether to embrace the truth or reject it." The veil's warning. As the vision faded, Elliot collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving. The Mycoids circled him, their voices blending into a melodic hum. One of them knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Many who come here choose to return to the veil," it said softly. "They choose the comfort of ignorance over the pain of truth. But you cannot return, Elliot, not fully. The spores have bound you to this place. You are one of us now." Elliot looked up at the Mycoid, his eyes wide with despair. "You're lying. I can go back. I have to go back." The Mycoid shook its head. "You may see the world again, but it will never be as it was. You will see through the veil, and what you see may destroy you." The Mycoid stepped back, leaving Elliot alone in the pulsating landscape of the mushroom world. The ground beneath him shifted and pulsed, as if alive, and the air was thick with the hum of unseen forces. In the distance, Elliot saw a shimmering portal, a doorway of light that seemed to lead back to the real world. But something about it felt wrong, like it was both an invitation and a trap. "You must choose," the Mycoid's voice echoed in his mind. "Stay here and learn the truth, or return to the world of shadows and lies." Elliot stared at the portal, his heart pounding. He could faintly hear his friends' voices calling to him, distant but desperate. But he also felt the pull of the mushroom world, its strange beauty and infinite possibilities. As he took a hesitant step toward the portal, the ground beneath him began to crack, and the Mycoid's voices rose in an ominous chant. "Choose wisely, traveler, for there is no turning back." Chapter 3. Transcendence or Madness. The portal's whisper. The portal shimmered like liquid light, its edges rippling softly, as if it were alive and breathing. Elliot stood frozen, his body trembling with indecision. The voices of his friends echoed faintly from within the portal, their laughter and pleas distorted, like they were underwater. He could almost see them, Max waving frantically, Lila clutching her hands together in silent prayer, Dean pacing by the fire, and Jared shouting something unintelligible. The familiarity of it pulled at him, a tether to the life he thought he'd lost. But the mushroom world wasn't letting go either. Behind him, the glowing Mycoids stood in silent vigil, their luminous forms casting faint, shifting shadows across the vibrant fungal ground. The world around him pulsed with life. Trees that swayed without wind, rivers of molten color that flowed uphill, and skies that changed from deep indigo to blinding gold with every blink of his eyes. The air was thick, humming with an energy that made his skin tingle. It felt alive, all of it, as if the very fabric of reality here had a consciousness of its own. "You are torn," said the Mycoid who had spoken to him before, stepping forward with a grace that seemed almost human. Its glowing eyes, impossibly deep and unreadable, studied him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "I don't belong here," Elliot said, yet, his voice hoarse, barely audible. "I don't belong in this place." The Mycoid tilted its head slightly, as though puzzled. "Do you belong where you came from? Or is it merely your fear that binds you to the illusion of comfort?" Elliot clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. "I don't know what you want from me. You keep saying I've seen the truth, but all I see is madness. I don't understand any of this." The Mycoid paused, its glow dimming slightly. "The question is not what we want, but what you want, Elliot. The veil has been lifted. You can no longer unsee. If you return, you will carry the truth with you, and it will twist everything you know. If you stay, you will transcend what you were, but you will leave behind what you once loved." Elliot's gaze flicked back to the portal. His chest ached at the thought of his friends, the life they would return to, the dinners, the late-night conversations, and even the dull monotony of their shared routines. But the Mycoid's words dug into him like thorns. Would he even recognize them anymore? Could he ever laugh with them, talk with them, truly be with them, knowing what he now knew? The fractured self. The ground beneath Elliot shifted as if responding to his torment. The spongy, glowing fungi trembled, and the vibrant hues of the world around him began to bleed together, forming swirling patterns of light and shadow. He fell to his knees as a sharp pain shot through his temples. And then he saw himself. Across from where he knelt, another Elliot emerged from the shifting landscape. This other self looked identical to him, but carried an eerie, unnatural stillness. His eyes were wide and glassy, his mouth curved into a faint, disconcerting smile. When he spoke, his voice echoed with an unnatural harmony, layering over itself like a chorus. "You're not ready," the other Elliot said, stepping closer. "You think you are, but you're not. You're clinging to the scraps of your old life because it's all you've ever known. You're too weak to let go." Elliot scrambled backward, shaking his head. "You're not real. You're just another hallucination." The other Elliot crouched down, his glassy eyes locking onto Elliot's. "I'm as real as you are. Maybe more. I'm the part of you that knows the truth, the part you keep trying to bury. And I'm telling you, if you go back, it will destroy you." "Shut up," Elliot shouted, his voice cracking. He pressed his hands to his ears, but the other self's voice seeped in like water through cracks in a dam. "They won't understand you," the other Elliot continued, his tone sharp and cutting. "You'll see through their lies, their delusions, and it'll drive you mad. You'll never belong with them again. You'll be an outsider, a freak, a ghost haunting a world you don't recognize." Elliot squeezed his eyes shut, tears streaming down his face. "I just want to go home." The other self leaned in close, his voice a venomous whisper. "There is no home. There never was." The Mycoids revelation. When Elliot opened his eyes, the other self was gone, and the Mycoid stood before him once more. Its glow was dim, almost subdued, as if it carried the weight of Elliot's torment. "You see now," it said, its voice softer than before. "Your struggle is not with this world or the one you left behind. It is with yourself." Elliot wiped his face with the back of his hand, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't even know what's real." The Mycoid reached out, its delicate, glowing hand hovering just above Elliot's chest. "What is real is what you choose to believe. The veil exists because humanity cannot bear the weight of the truth. But you, Elliot, have seen beyond it. You have a choice: to carry that burden or to let it go." The portal's pull. Elliot stood once more before the portal, its light casting long shadows across the ground. The hum of its energy was almost deafening now, vibrating through his bones. The Mycoid stood behind him, silent and watchful, their glowing forms a constant reminder of the world he was leaving, or perhaps the one he was choosing. He took a step toward the portal, his hands trembling. The voices of his friends grew louder, more distinct. He could make out Max's voice, shouting, "Elliot, come back! Snap out of it, man!" His foot hovered over the threshold, the light of the portal washing over him. But then he paused, his heart pounding in his chest. What would he see on the other side? Would it be the world he remembered? Or would it be the grotesque, hollow version the Mycoids had shown him? And if it was, could he live with that? Could he live knowing that everything he had ever believed was a lie? The acceptance. Elliot turned away from the portal, his hands falling to his sides. The Mycoids stepped forward, their glowing forms gathering around him like a protective cocoon. "You have chosen," the lead Mycoid said, its voice resonating with a quiet finality. Elliot nodded, his heart heavy but resolute. "I can't go back. I can't live a lie." The Mycoids reached out, their hands hovering above him. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a soothing, almost euphoric sensation that seemed to melt away his fear and doubt. The world around him shimmered, the vibrant colors growing even brighter, as if the mushroom world itself was welcoming him. "You are one of us now," the Mycoid said. "You will see beyond the veil, beyond the limits of your old self. You will transcend." As Elliot's body began to dissolve into light, merging with the energy of the mushroom world, he felt a strange sense of peace. The pain, the confusion, the fear, it all faded away, replaced by a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. But as his consciousness expanded, stretching across the infinite expanse of this strange, vibrant realm, a single thought lingered at the edge of his mind. Had he made the right choice? Chapter 4. The New Reality. The Awakening. Elliot opened his eyes, or at least what he now understood to be his perception of eyes. He no longer had a body in the traditional sense. The feeling was strange, almost disorienting, as if he were a presence rather than a person. A ripple of energy flowing through the vibrant expanse of the mushroom world. He could still feel, but differently. Each sensation was amplified and layered, as though his very essence had been stretched to encompass the entire realm. The mushroom world had shifted, or maybe it was Elliot who had changed. The glowing fungi that had once swayed gently now seemed to pulse in time with his thoughts. The rivers of light rippled with the rhythm of his emotions. The air shimmered with the hum of countless unseen currents, and Elliot could feel them all. Each thread of energy, each flicker of life coursing through the fabric of this place. He wasn't just in the mushroom world anymore. He was part of it. "You are awake," came the familiar voice of a mycoid, its tone resonating warmly in his mind. It stepped forward, its luminous form even brighter than before. "And you are complete." Elliot tried to speak, but words felt clumsy, unnecessary. Instead, he thought his question, and the mycoid answered as if it had heard him aloud. "This is your new reality," it said. "You have transcended the limitations of your old self. You are no longer bound by the constraints of time, space, or form. You are one with the truth." Elliot's thoughts swirled. In his old life, the idea of losing his physical form would have terrified him. But now, in this state of boundless awareness, he felt free. Learning the flow. The mycoids guided Elliot through his adaptation, teaching him how to navigate this strange, limitless world. They called it flowing, an act of merging with the currents of energy that wove through the mushroom world. Elliot learned to move not by walking, but by thought, his essence rippling like water through the ever-changing landscape. At first, it was overwhelming. The mushroom world was a tempest of constant motion and transformation. A single thought could reshape the terrain, turning forests into crystal caverns or rivers into floating islands. The mycoids explained that this was a reflection of the mind, an external manifestation of internal states. "Your thoughts shape this world," one of them said, "but the world also shapes you. It is a dance, a balance. You must learn to let go, to flow with it." Elliot practiced, his movements clumsy at first. He would try to stabilize the ground beneath him, only for it to collapse into a swirling pit of color. He would attempt to reach a distant mountain, only to find himself spiraling into an endless sky. But with time, he began to understand. The key wasn't control, it was surrender. As he let go of his need to define, to categorize, to grasp, the world around him softened. The chaos became harmony. The colors, sounds, and shapes blended into a symphony of experience, and Elliot found himself gliding effortlessly through it all. The mycoid purpose. One day, or perhaps it was an eternity later, time had lost all meaning. Elliot sat with the mycoids by a lake of glowing liquid. The liquid reflected not the sky, but his thoughts, forming fleeting images of his memories. He watched as scenes from his old life played out on the surface. His childhood, his friends, the camping trip. The laughter and warmth of those moments tugged at him, a bittersweet ache in the core of his being. "Do you miss them?" a mycoid asked, its voice gentle. Elliot hesitated. "I don't know," he thought, the words forming in his mind. "I miss the idea of them, but I don't think I could go back. Not now." "You have grown beyond that world," the mycoid said, "but your connection to it remains. That is not a weakness, Elliot. It is a gift." The mycoids explained their purpose. They were not merely inhabitants of the mushroom world. They were its stewards, its guardians. Their role was to guide those who stumbled into this realm, to help them understand the truth beyond the veil. Some, like Elliot, chose to stay. Others returned to their old lives, changed but still tethered to the world they had left behind. "You are one of us now," the Mycoid said. "You will help others as we have helped you. That is the way of this place." Guiding the lost, Elliot's first encounter with a new traveler came unexpectedly. He was gliding through a forest of crystalline trees, their branches chiming softly in the breeze, when he felt a ripple in the air. It was faint, but distinct, a disturbance in the flow of the mushroom world. He followed it to its source and found a lone figure standing in a clearing. The figure was human, a young woman, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. She turned as Elliot approached, her expression a mix of confusion and desperation. "Where am I? What is this place?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elliot paused, unsure of how to respond. He remembered his own fear when he had first arrived, the overwhelming sense of being untethered from everything he had ever known. He stepped closer, his form glowing faintly, and spoke in a voice that was both his and not his. "You're in the mushroom world," he said, "a place beyond the veil of your reality. You've crossed over." The woman shook her head. "I don't understand. I didn't mean to. She broke off, her voice cracking. Elliot reached out, his presence calming. "It's okay. You're not alone. I'll help you." As he guided her through the strange, shifting landscape, Elliot felt a flicker of purpose ignite within him. He understood now why the Mycoids had chosen him, why they had brought him into their fold. He wasn't just a part of the mushroom world. He was a bridge, a guide for those who were lost and searching. A new perspective. Over time, Elliot's memories of his old life began to fade. The faces of his friends blurred, their voices growing distant. But the ache of loss was replaced by something deeper, a sense of connection that transcended time and space. He realized that his friends, his family, his old self, they were all still part of him, woven into the fabric of his being. The mushroom world had not taken them away. It had simply transformed his understanding of them. One day, as he flowed through a glowing meadow, he caught a glimpse of the real world through a shimmering veil. He saw Max sitting alone at the edge of a lake, staring out at the water. Max's face was older now, lined with worry and grief. Elliot felt a pang of sadness, but also a deep gratitude. Max had been his anchor, the one who had pushed him to take the leap that had brought him here. "Thank you," Elliot thought, the words drifting through the veil. He didn't know if Max could hear him, but it didn't matter. The connection was still there, unbroken. The infinite horizon. As Elliot continued to explore the mushroom world, he realized that his journey was far from over. This place was infinite, its layers unfolding endlessly before him. There were truths here he had yet to uncover, mysteries that stretched beyond even his expanded understanding. And yet, he felt no fear. The weight of his old life, his old doubts, had lifted. He was no longer Elliot the man, bound by the limitations of flesh and time. He was something more, something boundless. As the glowing horizon stretched out before him, Elliot flowed forward, his essence merging with the currents of the mushroom world. He was no longer lost. He was home. Epilogue. Perhaps you too will one day find yourself in the mushroom world. Perhaps you will see beyond the veil, beyond the illusions of your reality. And perhaps, like Elliot, you will discover that the truth is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Until then, traveler, rest well. The journey awaits. The end. Thank you for listening to Trapped in the Trip by Short Verse Creations. Please like and subscribe for more great stories.